Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin, and this is the show where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts. Joining me today is David Galman, property consultant and previously director of Galliard Homes. Welcome, David.
Hello.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
And joining David, actually for his second appearance on Property Question Time, is Nick McCance, founder of Parello, experts in property investment guidance. Welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you both on board. Nick, I'm about to enter the world of property investment and I'm undecided as to whether to go buy-to-let or HMO. Although the income from HMOs would seem to be higher, so too are the potential management costs and tenant churn, all affecting the eventual return. Any advice, please?
The advice would always be against HMO, personally.
Would it? Okay.
Buy-to-let is such a stable and straightforward-ish.
Are you saying it's like watching paint dry?
That's kind of what you want in an investment, to be fair. You want it to grow and you want it to have a good return. You want it to be very stable. I feel the HMO market is definitely a little bit more transient. You're going to have, let's say, for example, you've got a standard 3-bedroom property that you're renting out, one family in there, you've got one set of problems. You've got 3 tenants in there, you've automatically got 3 sets of problems. Sure. And 3 people to keep happy. Although there is more money in it.
And not one of them can agree on what temperature the rooms can be. Yeah, I've seen it all before, yeah.
Just got to put thermostats on the radiator, surely. But yeah, I think that although that the financial gain is obviously going to be a little bit more, is it worth the headache? And you are banking on that being full all through the year, all of the time. If it's empty for whatever reason, or if there's maintenance, or if there's problems with the legislation, obviously you've got to keep up with your agreements, with your fire alarm systems. Everything has to be running perfectly to ensure you gain more, which obviously doesn't happen.
Okay. I mean, David, we see down here, don't we, some of these progression from HMOs to some of the really upmarket sort of developments. I mean, they'll perhaps go to somebody like David and want to take a whole floor.
There's quite a lot of that where people will take, and that's slightly different, isn't it? When you say the word HMO, or the letter,
you're thinking bed and breakfast.
Well, exactly. You're thinking bed and breakfast. You're thinking half of a grotty, rundown building that some chancellor owns and manages to let out, and not the best quality tenants paying a cheap rent, but lots of it and lots of them. Whereas I think the one good thing about the build to rent basis and the PRS structure has been that it's trying to take the tenant that has been in a student accommodation and their first occupation when they come out and they go to work in the big wide world, they actually still want to be part of a community. So I've seen that in a number of buildings where as long as you've got decent facilities for them, they're very happy to be in there. So it's different to an HMO. An HMO takes me back a long way.
Why is it? Why aren't sort of more people? I mean, it's developers at the moment. Some are doing reasonably well, but some are stuck with sort of, halfway through the project, worrying about build costs and that sort of thing. I mean, it seems to me quite an obvious thing to sell, a whole floor, a whole footprint to a sort of HMO type proposition. Is it
I think
not?
Developers are, but they're probably in the current climate, certainly down here, not where you are, Nick, but down here definitely. Someone's going to try and buy those at a price that just doesn't work. That's the problem. We're all looking for what we call a bulk deal, a mini bulk deal, and so on, and it's about getting the numbers right on that.
Yeah. Difficult, but I mean, there's certainly a potential. I mean, you'll remember, same as I, here at Canary Wharf, the original idea was lots of studios, lots of one beds, so that bankers could work here in the week and then go home to the country at the weekend, and that was the sort of that was the model, wasn't it? Really,
it definitely was. It definitely was. But as I said to you earlier, we have found that the larger accommodation is what people are looking for, and quite interestingly, a number of people. I've just got a penthouse under offer to someone. I'm not showing off, it's true. We have got a penthouse under offer to someone who already actually owned a flat in the building, decided they loved it so much, and he's now buying the penthouse for his own occupation, and he'll worry about selling the other one. He's obviously in a different league to most of us, and because his family love being here of the weekend. They love being in London on the weekend and using the culture and stuff. So.
Yeah. A little bit different in Manchester, to be fair. Yeah, our HMO standard is still not where it needs to be.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, except some of these places are just amazing. The communal areas are superb. They've got private cinemas, they've got workspace areas, all, you know, just quite amazing. And, you know, well, okay, well done. But even then, I think the management sort of costs must be quite
Huge.
high.
Yeah.
Well, it's like running a hotel, isn't it?
So
when we sold hotel rooms many years ago, I didn't realise that it's actually, if you let your hotel room for £100 a night, it's costing you £50 a night to run it.
Yeah.
It's 50%.
Yeah. Well, we've crunched the numbers a few times with landlords who are considering doing this. And when you bottle it, bring it all down, you might be making an extra £100, couple £100.
It's just not worth it with the legislation.
For the amount of headache that you get, it's for me, I would always stick with buy-to-let.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, had we better answer the question?
I'm just thinking, when you just got back to the original question,
and you just
Should we go back to one word answers?
Well done.
Yeah, you just have. Okay, David. Do the panel think that the expected reduction in interest rates anticipated mid this year through to next will automatically show an increase in property transactions and pick up a fairly stale market?
I'm not sure it will. I don't wish to be the bearer of doom and gloom, because I'm not. I've always.
They don't call you the Grim Reaper for nothing, do they?
I've always been pretty positive on it, to be honest with you. But I don't think that. I think interest rates have kind of settled where they are, and there's so much potential for it all to go wrong, and for rates not to come down towards the very back end of this year. I also think the British public are far more intelligent than they're given credit for by the politicians. And they know that if there's an interest rate cut in September, say, that it's because there's an election coming in October and they've managed to manipulate the
Do you know
market
something we
so.
don't?
I read October the 24th today as being the day for the election. So put that in your diary.
Well, just to contradict you and be a little bit controversial, I was listening to a news programme this morning and they were saying, although usually the ministers' appointments are published 2 to 3 months in advance, so everybody has an idea where everybody's going to be. April and May appointments have not been published yet.
Maybe because there's no one left.
Possibly, or perhaps they can't read or write.
Who knows? Let's see. But interest rates, is it going to give I mean, it will give a little bit of a boost to the market. I'm sure it will. But I think people have already factored in where they're going to have to be and where rates are. And I can see a stable market through this year. Not great, not bad, just a stable market. And perhaps we need a return to the normality of a stable market, where if you put your house on at the right price at the right time, you'll sell it, because there is still a demand for that house.
Well, we've touched briefly on the subject, but I was talking to the head of residential from a very substantial firm of agents. Well, they'll probably tell me off for agents at Chartered Surveyors in London here the other day. And he was saying what is selling in volume is the real home, the 3-4 bedroom house, anywhere between 800 and 1.25 million. Very real market for very real owner occupiers rather than investors. And that's where they were deriving their income from. And he said it was a struggle to get instructions for the right sort of properties in any.
There's probably not enough of them around, but
no,
exactly. I'm seeing that and hearing that anecdotal evidence as well, pretty much. So the traditional market is okay. It's something that anything that's slightly different is much more difficult. Although super prime, which doesn't include anyone here and doesn't include, I think that's still okay because it's still relying on the international market.
Well, it's a different market altogether, isn't it?
Doesn't have any bearing on reality.
No. Well, what's the main predominance of type of buyer on these investment properties in Manchester and the north? Nick, is it still a Chinese market? Is it a Russian market? What is it?
Generally speaking, a lot of Hong Kong money. A lot of Hong Kong money coming over from there. A lot of that is due to their own government, their own situation.
Well, and the visa situation.
And the visa situation, absolutely. Yeah. But again, I was actually in the middle of COVID. We were looking at doing exactly this. We were looking at selling our home, and it's a new build, probably about now 5 years old. At the time, it's 3 years old. And the minute we put it on the market, it was a dozen viewings booked in day one, and all Hong Kong money.
Wow.
All of
really?
it. Absolutely.
That's interesting.
All of it. Yeah. And we've just sold one literally 2 doors down from where I live now. And they have a development at the back. And he was about to spend about another 100 grand on top of that, of what the purchase price of this one was for. He was able to save money on this property, but the example that he gave is in Hong Kong, the property is 340,000. In Hong Kong, this would have been worth 1.5.
Yeah, of course.
It's,
different
crazy.
worlds, eh?
Completely. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we're talking about interest rates, I don't think anybody's put off.
No.
Just yet.
I actually don't think it's that expensive at 5, 6.
What you and I used to.
Yeah, different, isn't it?
That
I
0% was
always brought up to believe anything under 10% is cheap. So there you go. All right, well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me after the break when we'll ask Nick and David more of your questions. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm joined by Nick McCance and David Galman. Welcome back, guys.
Hello.
Thank you.
Let's get on with the questioning. Nick, as the need for more and more housing becomes obvious, do the experts think that the inconsistency of local authorities granting HMO licences will relax and become more level across the country? I mean, what are these called? What is it? Section 4 notices or something?
Well,
is that what it's called?
Well, there's the Section 21 notice for evicting tenants, which looks like it's being abolished very soon. But
let me just qualify that, because what they're saying is they will get rid of it once they feel that the courts can keep up with the with the adjudications. And I mean, from my experience as a magistrate, that's probably 2 years away.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, the wait time there is ridiculous.
Well,
ridiculous wait time at the minute. But yeah, with the HMO side of things,
it's very confusing, isn't it?
I highly doubt that they're going to relax any rules whatsoever.
Really? But what about making them more consistent nationwide? It's all right. It comes back to the sort of NIMBY ethos that David was referring to about sort of green belts. Some councils say, oh no, we don't want all these HMOs in this area. But if it's fulfilling a need for reasonably priced accommodation, again, especially for young people, I really don't see what the issue is, do you?
No, I tend to agree. I'm not sure that. I think the problem is with all of these elected bodies, a year into their job, they're looking at being re-elected again, so they don't want to do anything that might cause offence, cause harm, and that's part of the problem. And that's something that we've spoken about 100 times before. Is the planning problem? It's the same issue. The people that are in charge of it are worried about being in a seat next year. It's a problem.
Councils need to collaborate. Surely there should be a blanket rule for people.
I can't see why there can't be a sort of central directive. I do understand that councils must have some input into what goes on in the local areas. I understand that, of course. But we're talking here about housing shortages on a phenomenal scale, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And getting worse.
And getting worse and worse,
Surely it should be making it easier for these people to find housing, or even easier for...
Well, what is the objection, do you think, for HMOs? How does it degrade the area? How does it cause a problem?
Well, I don't actually think it does. I think there's a perception that it does, and there's a perception that it's going to bring an awful number of people into a certain area and perhaps they don't believe they've got the facilities and the amenities to handle it.
Yeah.
It might be infrastructure related. I think unfortunately a lot of it will be jealousy by the people that are working at the local authority in granting planning permission to that dirty landlord that's making a profit. I genuinely believe there's a jealousy there.
When you apply for an HMO licence, does it go before a planning committee, or is it just done on directives from the...
Nick's going to know that better than me.
I would have thought that several different factors there, but it will go to committee.
Will it?
I think so, definitely so. I think it might vary between councils, but I would say so, definitely.
Because to me, aren't we past the state now where, 12 elected novices are making quite complex planning decisions? I mean, I think it's really quite bad, isn't it?
Absolutely. You've got people in the industry who are guiding landlords and investors to make good quality HMOs for somebody to come and inspect it and go through and change everything that you've just done about it.
I mean, if it was left to me, I'd have even buy-to-let landlords licensed. I think there'd be no harm in charging a fee and having a rental property inspected before you're allowed to let it. That would cut a lot of problems out.
Be a bit of job creation there, wouldn't it? Have a lot of people inspecting them. But
so, David, I mean, let's go back 20 years to when we had sellers packs.
I remember them well.
They created an awful lot of jobs, didn't they? Actually, It was a bit rotten because the government encouraged everybody to take the course and learn how to put these packs together and earn a living, and then they changed their mind and just ditched it, a bit like they did with these insulation rules. But actually, it was quite good because it stopped people putting their houses on the market just to test it, see if they could get a premium price. Okay. It helped estate agents in a lot of ways after a lot of fuss, because they knew that if they took the property on, it was going to cost you money, so you weren't going to invest money if you're wasting everybody's time. And it created quite a good business environment, if you ask me. And I wonder if we're not back at that sort of stage.
Well, we might be. We might need some kind of relaxed regulation. That would be a good way of doing it. So it wasn't too stringent, but there was a regulation. I agree that perhaps not in a new build property, but perhaps in something that's not new, in it being inspected by a third party. Maybe not every property, maybe some kind of random inspection, so you know that it could be.
Well, you could do it on age, couldn't you? If it's over 5 years or 7 years old, a bit like a car, you need to have a council check.
Property MOT.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, especially because, you read in the paper about the complaints about damp and this sort of thing and horrendous conditions. It's not the private landlord that's the big offender there, is it? It's the housing
local authority and housing
associations.
Is it because they don't have the money, or is it they don't have the expertise?
My personal feeling is that they don't have the high level of management skill that you need. They perhaps don't have the budgets to afford it. I don't know. And you've got sort of mediocre to average building managers who are probably
not
not
on the head with expertise.
Yeah.
Definitely so. If you're not used to seeing these problems, and you're welcomed into a world which has an abundance of these problems, there's a problem.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, all right. Well, let's move on, David. Although the government is attempting to do away with long leasehold properties in favour of perhaps shared freehold, how will the good governance of a property, i.e. good management, be controlled? Many blocks in London have a huge percentage of overseas owners who historically have been difficult to engage with and contribute to management decisions. I think we both suffered that one over the years, haven't we?
Yeah, no, very much so. I think, listen, in terms of houses, I mean, that should have been dealt with a long time ago. There was never an excuse to have a leasehold house. And that should have been dealt with a long, long time ago, and it just got ignored by successive governments. Thankfully, they are dealing with that now. In terms of apartments, I'm not sure how they're going to do it. And, there are a number of big investment houses out there that own swathes of ground rent investments. Are they going to suddenly see their income reduced to zero? Does that give them any incentive, which is what you're looking for here? Is there an incentive, therefore, then to upkeep the property? Why should they bother?
Well, I mean, the two things there, David. Let's, for the benefit of viewers who are not familiar with leasehold, leasehold means that you all contribute through a service charge to a management company, maybe a freeholder, maybe not, to a fund which looks after the building, and that management company will do, or supposed to do, in the interests of all the tenants, look after the building, make sure that rules are observed, the place is looking good, it's refurbished as and when it needs refurbishing and that sort of thing. And I just don't know how you're going to control that if you don't have those kind of management structures. And as far as overseas owners are concerned, I mean, I've just come across this so many times. You can write to them all and say, well, we'd like to do this or we'd like to do that. And they'll all go, yeah. Until you say, well, of course, what it will cost is a couple of £1,000 each. And they disappear like a rat up a drain pipe, you know, sort of as fast as they can go, and you never hear from them again. So it's a very difficult thing. And so those structures do have to have some authority to be able to get the works done. And I think the government are missing that point.
I think they are. I mean, I don't know what happens in buildings that go right to manage, whereby the residents are managing it themselves. If it's a large building, surely they still appoint a managing agent, because it's a huge task. It's a very difficult, complex
even
job.
the accounting is subject to so much scrutiny, isn't it?
You know, going out and getting the best insurance quote, getting the correct insurance company and the correct insurance on the building. Every year they've probably got to produce another EWS1 form now for certain buildings above 18 stories. There's an awful lot more work in it than the problem is, and it's the same the whole time, is the government do not have anybody within their ranks that actually understands property in any way, shape or form. How many housing ministers we had?
16 in 10 years.
Is it 16? Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. So how can they possibly do anything?
Well, I mean, how do you get any form of consistency with a structure like that? I mean, and I really do think, you know, it's the same with planning and these housing requirements. You know, say, oh well, we need 300,000 houses a year or 500,000, whatever it is now. But you know what? If you make sure that the customer can buy the house, in other words, finance it, these developers will build as many as you want.
Absolutely.
You know, you know, if it's 600,000 a year, they'll do it. But as long as they're sure they can sell it.
As long as we know we can sell it, which is why the PRS market has ballooned, because it's a guaranteed sale at the end of the day. The banks are not going to give a developer the money to go and build something unless they've got 50%, 60% sold beforehand. And that's not going to happen in the open market now. So PRS has come along and taken that slack up. Yeah,
and it's a good job something has. I mean, Nick, again, I'm sorry, we'll be a bit London-centric
here,
right. But, you know, I think David and I have both seen in the past, you know, you start a development, first thing the bank says, oh, well, we want to see that you've got 20-25% pre-sales before you start construction. So you go out to Hong Kong, Singapore or whatever, you get your 20-25%. You come back and the bank then says, well, yeah, this is all right, but these are overseas buyers. How are you going to enforce it? Can't you get some UK investment people? So you think, oh, right. So you go out, you get your UK investors who want a discount for getting your 25% gone. You go back to the bank and the bank says, oh, well, you've got UK investors, but the pricing very good, is it? You know, so where do you go? I mean, you're almost running around in circles, aren't you, sometimes?
Well, one of the banks are very much where they're getting involved in development these days and keeping such an eye on schemes that they're financing. They want to see a list of buyers and they want to see if the same names down
crop
there.
up, yeah.
Oh, you've sold 10 to that one. How do you know he's going to complete? Well, I've got 20% and I think he will, but how do I know that these other 20 are going to complete? You know, it's very, very difficult.
The hurdles are just
difficult
all the time. Hurdles, every sort of place.
Okay, well, gentlemen, I'm going to say thank you very much for coming down from Manchester and for coming across London. Thank you both very much indeed for your contribution today. It's really good. Thank you for watching. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time. See you then.